keep it local. That's what everyone says, right? How do we keep it local, buy local, live local? Well, living local means you got to have a local team. So I'm your local realtor, and I'll take care of you on that front. But keeping it local also applies to your lending partner. Here today with Joe along with Guild Mortgage, and I wanted Joe to join us and tell us a little more about kind of how he got into the mortgage business and what kind of being local means to him. So Joe, if you want to start off, just let everyone know a little bit who you are and kind of how you came to be into this business.
First of all, thanks for having me to talk about this. I really appreciate it. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and I was gonna maybe go to college for business, and I made a decision what I wanted to do was be in sales, but I didn't know that at the time. So I had a friend who was in the mortgage business, and he said, you should come and try this, you would love it. And to me, I thought, well, I'm a kid, you know, if you'll have me, I'll do it. And I interviewed, and they gave me a job, and then they threw a stack of leads in front of me, and they said, start dialing. And I immediately realized what I had gotten into. But I was young and full of pride, and I knew really quickly that I loved this business. And so I made the calls, and I learned that I loved the mortgage business, but I had to get out of where I was. And I think I closed 9 loans that first year or something like that. And I realized that I needed to be with a mortgage shop that would teach me how to do business by referral and do business the right way. And so I got with a really great group of guys and have kind of been on a pretty good track with some great companies ever since. And the mortgage business has really been a blessing. It's banking, but it's also, I always tell people that what I do is solve problems, right? There's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all real estate transaction. What I get to do is put together the puzzles every day, and there's financial education, and there's counseling, and there's advice. But most of what we do is solve people's problems.
I think it's a really interesting way you just put it there about solving people's problems. I think people think about real estate as this great, exciting thing. We're going to go buy a house, or we're going to sell a house. But it's true. There's always something that comes up, whether it's a personal problem or financial problem. And as your realtor, I can't fix all those problems. That's why I've got people like Joe on my team to help out with those problems and come at it from a different perspective. I might have a thought of what the solution is, but Joe might have a different one, a more creative one, or maybe even a better one, usually a better one. And the point of that is that it takes a team to do this. So, you can bank with anybody, you can get a mortgage from anybody. Joe, why do you think it's so important to people in this market to use a local lender or someone that lives in the community where you're buying the house?
I mean, I think there's a ton of reasons for that. We're going to have local vendor partnerships, all right? Like, your appraiser matters. You don't want somebody coming in from out of your area. You want vetted, proven, effective appraisers that get it done on time and that know the neighborhood and know how to make a deal work. You also want a local lender because we're going to have programs that we're going to have expertise in local down payment assistance programs.
Sure. And
there are bond programs unique to the state of Wisconsin that if your lender is outside of Wisconsin, they're not going to have access to. And indeed, one of those programs, WIDA, is the lowest interest rate basically you can get on the market if you're under a certain income limit. And by virtue of not working with somebody in Wisconsin, that they probably won't have access to WIDA and won't be able to do that program. And so it's important to be with somebody local just for that reason. And then the third is it can literally make or break you getting your offer accepted. So accountability is really important to agents and list agents. They need to be able to get a hold of the lender. They need to know that the lender is going to communicate and give good news fast and bad news faster. And if the lender can hide in their ivory tower and not return calls and not be beholden to the relationship and the reputation, then the listing agent may not have faith that lender is actually going to make good on their promise, or that they've actually done the research, and you might not even get your offer accepted. So I think reputation matters, execution matters, and it can mean getting your deal together or not.
Yeah, I think something you really said that there was important is that the availability, right? We buy and sell homes, generally speaking, not during normal business hours. If we did everything between 9 and 5, that'd be wonderful. But then who would be in the home or out of the home to buy and sell them?
It does help our clients to have jobs.
Yes.
So we can
Right. So most people work during 9 to 5, and you can't buy houses during that time because you're working. So I think what you said about being available is so important. We work all hours as realtors, and we take days off too, and lenders do as well. But having the availability to have a conversation where if we have a question about a loan, can we call on a weekend and have that quick conversation? If it's a tight conversation or a tight competition with another offer, having Joe pick up the phone and call a listing agent has helped at least 2 of my clients that I can think of in the last year go from not having a home to having a home.
That's great.
Now, it doesn't mean that there were any rules broken. It just means, hey man, they had trust that the loan was going to close. They trusted in me and they trusted in Joe, so then they trusted in our client. And that's the goal at the end of the day, is that we're all working together.
Yeah.
If we don't do that, it's harder to get a house. Having a person on your side that's going to make that phone call can be a big difference in a lot of ways.
Well, I think sometimes there's a stigma as well, right? Like, for example, somebody using an FHA loan. FHA loans go pretty low on credit. They go pretty high on debt ratio. They work for people that are maybe 2 years out of bankruptcy. And also some agents think that they're really strict from a condition standpoint, and they are a little stricter than conventional loans. But if a listing agent has an idea in their head of, oh, this FHA deal is going to be terrible because maybe another lender issued a pre-approval and denied it later, or gave had a deal fall apart because of property condition, right? If that were to happen, then that listing agent might think, oh, I'm not taking that FHA offer because that deal is bound to fall apart, right? And then if I'm communicating with that agent and saying, well, hey, what are you concerned about? This, that, oh, that is a concern, or that's not a concern. Or I'm letting them know that we pre-underwrote that deal and that they don't need to worry about that borrower's credit. It's not going to fall apart. Then it can really bridge the gap, right? And it's just as simple as making the phone call and having the communication in that case. So
It's simple. I think that's something you just said that really sticks out to me. The process isn't that hard. In the state of Wisconsin, the offer contract, it's written already. We're filling in the blanks with offer numbers, timelines, all that kind of stuff. And underwriting a loan can be hard and complex. I don't do it, so I don't know. That's why I have a lender. But like you said, picking up the phone is a simple action that makes a huge difference in the process. At the end of the day, when you're buying a home or you're selling a home, those people don't necessarily meet until the closing table, but all the agents and the realtors and lenders, everyone else involved as a professional, can talk in advance and can get to know each other. And so if there's a level of trust and honesty and respect between all of us, it can go a long way to getting your deal accepted, which is great for everyone in the process. Joe, what would you say to someone who's thinking about buying, whether they're young, old, everywhere in between? What are maybe 3 things they should be thinking about to decide if they're ready or if now is a good time for them?
Okay, so the first thing that you should do is get pre-approved way in advance, right? So if you want to buy a house 30 days from now or 3 years from now, you should get pre-approved, because as a lender, we're going to be able to tell you what you need to do to set yourself up to win in the most advantageous way possible, right? Maybe you need to build credit, maybe you need to pay down debt, maybe you need to save money, and maybe you don't need to do that at all, right? But what you shouldn't do is go and look at a house first and then try to figure out how to make it work, because if you fall in love with a house that's outside of your price range, or you don't have enough money down, you're going to be disappointed with everything else that you look at. And you may not want to put the money down, or you may not want to make the payment. And that can be a real heartbreaker for a buyer. Whereas if you know what you're getting into before you go and look at a property, then you can look at stuff that makes sense for you, right? And then you can know confidently that when you're there in that property, looking at that property, that you can make an offer on it. If you want to make an offer on it. I would also tell you that when a lender is asking you for your documentation up front, that's a good thing. So there have been times where I'll compete against another lender for a buyer's business, and a buyer will say, well, that other lender didn't ask me for these things, right? And I know that in the buyer's head, it's an easier process over here. But what a buyer should do is be concerned that that lender didn't ask for those documents, because we don't need different documents to close a loan than anybody else. We're doing Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA loans. Everybody needs the same paperwork. They're just going to ask for it later. And if they're asking for it later, your deal might blow up. And if they're doing that to appear easier to work with, that should concern you with their character. And so you should feel good about the fact that you're being asked for paperwork up front, because it shows that we care and we don't want there to be any surprises. So I would say that, and I guess the third, you asked for 3, I would say insist on sitting down with somebody. So if a lender sends you an email and tells you what you're pre-approved for, or gives you a phone call to tell you what you're pre-approved for, and you haven't had a consultation, like our borrower consultations last 45 minutes, and we're not talking about what the person qualifies, or we're not talking about what do you earn, how much money is in the bank. We're talking about what you qualify for, how much money is going to come out of your pocket, what do you want to pay for, what's the most you can pay for, what should you expect during the process. We're talking about contingencies, pitfalls, things you need to know about how to craft an offer. We're not asking you, what do you earn, because we're already there, and now you're getting an educational experience. If a lender's not doing that for you, find somebody who will, because you have a right to know all of those things, and you should know those things because you want to be armed with the knowledge that you need to have a successful purchase.
Yeah, I think that last point you brought up there was probably the most important part. Actually sitting down face-to-face or via Zoom, preferably face-to-face, I believe, gives you a chance to actually ask questions of someone. And it could be questions that are specific to that loan or general to the buying process or the lending process. And so I think that part of the process is something I know I pride myself in, I know you do as well. And it's part of why we're on the similar team as far as giving our clients a great experience. Education and face-to-face and being available is super important to them. Joe, can you think of, I know there's a lot of misconception out there for people who are either first-time home buyers or fifth-time home buyers, that they think the market is one way and it's really not. What is one thing that maybe you would challenge people to think a little bit differently about when they go into the home buying process?
Well, I guess there's two, right? One I'm hearing a lot lately right now is the market's going to fall apart. And when I ask people why they say that, they say, because it fell apart before, okay? And the dynamics of the current real estate market couldn't be further from the dynamics of the previous real estate market in 2008. When people say it fell apart before, that's what they're talking about. They could not be any more different, right? So the market's not going to fall apart, and we can kind of break that down. But the other one is people seem to think that they can outsave the market, right? So people, and maybe your parents told you, you don't want PMI. PMI is expensive, right? The average home buyer in the U.S. Puts down 5%, and the average home buyer, period, non-first-time home buyer, puts down 17%. Okay, so a lot of people have PMI. It's the wheels that grease the American housing ecosystem, and it's not that expensive because over the last couple of years, it's become competitively bid and done by algorithms. So the prices drop significantly, and if you have good credit, you would be shocked at how cheap it is. I think people think that it's this really expensive thing, and it used to be. And so people's parents will tell them, "Oh, you got to avoid PMI. It's a trap. You don't want to pay it." The truth is, you can't outsave the market. Some of you can, but most of you can't.
Sure.
There is in Dane County, in a normal market, and define normal market.
Right.
But houses appreciate about 4% a year. It's been more than that the last couple of years, but they appreciate about 4% a year, right? So if a $400,000 house appreciates 4%, it's $16,000. So if you're going to save enough money to outpace the market, you need to save $16,000 a year plus whatever you were saving before. Now, how long will it take you to get to a 20% down payment? And if it's going to take you 5 years, then you're going to save 20% over 5 years and put a 20% down payment down just to get back to what the house was priced at 5 years ago.
Sure.
So do not try to outsave the market. If you are blessed enough to earn enough income to save enough money to outpace the market, buy it right now. If rates go down, refinance. And if you're making extra money and you're already maxing out your 401k and a Roth IRA, then throw more money at the balance and pay it down. Good for you. But most people can't outsave the market, and they shouldn't try to do it.
I think those two are extremely important. I think one thing that Joe didn't mention that is super important that also is sometimes no is the right answer. And it sounds weird to say, like, no, now is not the right time for you to buy. And obviously, for both of us making a living, if someone isn't buying a home, we're not getting paid, to be blunt, right? But that ability to say no to someone, saying now is not the right time, but there could be time in the future that is good for you, that's a positive conversation. How hard is it to have that, though, with a home buyer that comes to you and says, hey, I really want to start this process. I really think I can afford this. I want to go out there and do this. How do you say no without crushing dreams, I guess? I know that sounds really mean, and you're not the dream crusher, but sometimes you have to be that hard no that we as realtors can't because we don't see the whole picture.
Well, I'm not allowed to say no unless there's this, so I can give advice, right? And I can say, hey, this appears like it might be a little expensive for you. Have you thought through these things? Or have you thought about, after you close and you've liquidated this much money out of your savings to make this work, have you thought about what it's going to like to be you on a daily basis to make this payment? Are you really sure you've got this dialed in? we can't actually say no to a buyer unless they are overstated, debt to income limits or under a minimum credit score, or we can't get an approval through an automated underwriting system. And so it's a matter of advice, right? So in that case where I know in my gut that that's probably too high of a payment for a borrower, or it might be too much house for somebody, we will share with them tactfully, hey, have you envisioned yourself making this payment? Have you envisioned yourself without savings, because you're a person with savings right now?
Sure.
And try to get them to come to that realization. And then ultimately it does end up being the client's decision. And I guess the way that I reconcile that is, if the buyer decides to move forward with it anyways, I know that they're going to be taken care of with our team. And so at least I know that it's going to get done in the most thoughtful, caring way, should they still choose to proceed. But that's how you handle those situations.
Sure.
Yeah, we need to close transactions in a year, in 2 years, in 5 years. Another misconception people have is that people in our business just want to close deals. That's absolutely not true. We will close deals, whether it's your deal or somebody else's deal. And we need to close deals down the road, not just right now. We do business by referral. And so if I take care of you by telling you no, and you tell a friend that we took good care of you, that's still good for my business, right? So I think that you can trust people in real estate a lot more probably than you realize it. And the last thing that we want is a bad review, or for you to tell somebody that we didn't take care of you. So there's a level of accountability built into it that most people maybe don't realize in that way, I think.
I think that's a great way to sum it up. And at the end of the day, we want to be your partners in this process. Wanting to buy a home is exciting, and getting to buy a home is even more exciting. And getting to do it with confidence and feeling good about the purchase and not being stressed about owning and living in the home, that's what we want to do. We want to be your team. Let us navigate this process with you, help you get comfortable with it, negotiate, do all that kind of stuff to give you the tools to do that.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, your lender partner and your realtor partner, we are a team together, and we're a team for you. So if there's ever a question you have, it's not a bad one, it's a good one, because it's a question. We want to be involved in that conversation. We want to answer all of them, and hopefully those answers are what you want to hear. Sometimes harsh truth is not always fun, but our goal, like Joe mentioned, is to help you, whether you're buying now or buying in 6 years. We still want to be that partner for you for now and for life. If there's one thing you would want to leave someone with when it comes to working locally with a lender and a realtor partner, what would that be, Joe? Why do you think, at the end of the day, that can set someone apart in the process, or make their process easier for them by working with someone local as opposed to someone national, or it just advertised rates are higher? Why is it better to have someone that's going to have that full conversation with you?
Okay, so let's say that you're on a plane. Okay, most of the time, the autopilot is flying the plane. The pilot's not flying the plane, right? But every once in a while, you hit turbulence, right? And who do you want flying the plane through the turbulence? Do you want the autopilot, or do you want the old pro flying it through the turbulence, right? So when everything goes right on a transaction, the autopilot can get you there, right? You can push a button and get there. But when things don't go right, or when there's a little bit of hair on a deal, or you need to think creatively, or you need to bring a vendor in, or you need to get something done really fast, or you're not sure if you're getting the best deal or being put in the right product, or there are just so many reasons that you would want somebody local flying the plane, because it's just more likely to land. And and you're more likely to have a positive experience. I think, so
that's great. So next time you're flying an airplane, remember there's a pilot there, even though the autopilot is there to help you out, and let us be that pilot as you're going to try to land the plane to buy a house. We really appreciate you tuning in today, and hopefully we'll hear from you soon.
Thanks for watching.